Praise Yeshua. Thank you for tuning in to our Wednesday night Bible study here at Christians Community Center Church of Jackson, which is located at 2243 McFadden Road, Jackson, Mississippi, 39204. We have services here every week, starting with our 9:30 Sunday school, followed by our 11 o'clock worship and praise service, Monday night prayer at 7 p.m., and this service here on Wednesday nights as well. All of our services can be found online. Well, not all of our services. Most of our services can be found online. Mainly the Wednesday night Bible study and our Sunday morning worship and praise service. The other one, Sunday school, is on what's that thing called? Zoom. So if you want to tune into that, you have to ask for the link. Praise Yeshua. So that out of the way, let's just bow our heads and we'll go before the Lord with the word of prayer. Heavenly Father, we come to you right now in the blessed and mighty name of Yeshua HaMashiach. We thank you and praise you, Lord, for this opportunity to study your word. Heavenly Father, to learn more about how a child of God should conduct themselves, Lord, the responsibilities as well as the privileges that we have in you. And Heavenly Father, what we can expect for obedience to your word. Heavenly Father, we pray that you will lead us and direct us into this study, preparing our hearts, our minds, and giving us the wisdom and understanding that's necessary, Lord, to grow and to develop into a mature child of God. We thank you for this. We praise you for it. In the mighty name of Yeshua we pray. Amen. Praise Yeshua. So, it seems like it's been forever now since I was teaching Bible study. Been 3 weeks, I think. We're on this overall topic of learning to love. And it's important that, there are certain things that, that are discussed in the Bible, not necessarily just, pounded home in one little spot, but throughout the Bible that we see, we observe, and there are things that, we are to learn from. And, one of those things is love. And, and the Bible teaches us that, you find here a little, there a little, that these precepts and these concepts help you to formulate an idea or a doctrine or some type of lifestyle that should be followed as a child of God. And so what we're looking at now is love. And we were looking at in 1 Corinthians, the 13th chapter, it's talking about love, and the part that we're on right now, I'm not going to read all of this here, but the part that we were looking at in 1 Corinthians 13 was verse 4 and 5, and I'll just look at one part of this here. And it just says, when it's talking about charity, but it's really talking about love. And it says, love suffereth long, and love is patient. And then it also says, love is kind. Love is kind. And that's what we're going to be looking at tonight. Love being kind. Now, there are two things that, over the next week or so, or during this section, I'll say, that we're going to be looking at, and that's the concept of kind and compassionate. And those are two different things. So kind, the way you want to boil it down in ways that we can remember things easily, kind is about actions. Being kind, K-I-N-D, is about your actions. It's about doing something good for others and expecting nothing in return. It's out of the goodness of your heart that you do something for somebody and you don't expect anything in return. That's being kind. Because if you expect something in return, you're not being kind. You're being wise, or you're being, I'm going to say fiduciary, responsible, whatever you want to call it. But you're investing. You're hoping for something in return. So you're doing something, expecting something. So that's not being kind. And then compassion is more about the feeling of feeling sorry for what somebody's going through and wanting to help them. And they say you help them. So there's a difference between being kind. Kind is actually doing something. Compassion is the emotions that are associated with your outlook on somebody else's life or what they're going through and wanting to do, but you don't do or you can't do in some cases. And we're going to look at this here tonight. So we're going to be looking at these two things interchangeably quite a bit. Kindness and compassion over the next part of this study right here. And we see that kindness and compassion is displayed in mercy and grace, right? Because mercy is forgiveness. You forgive somebody. I mean, if that ain't kind, I don't know what is. Because like you don't deserve it. I'm gonna forgive you, and I expect nothing in return. And so a lot of times we think forgiveness has something in return. No, it doesn't. Like, well, they got to apologize and then I forgive them. No, that's not godly forgiveness. Godly forgiveness is forgiving somebody whether they apologize or not. And then, mercy is undeserved favor. All right. So let's start off tonight by going to John, the 11th chapter. John 11. And we're going to start at verse number 11. John 11, Yohanan 11. And it reads, it says, these things said he, and after that he said unto them, our friend Lazarus sleepeth, but I go that I may wake him out of sleep. Then his disciples, then said his disciples, Lord, if he sleep, he shall do well. Howbeit Yeshua spake of his death, but they thought that he had spoken of taking a rest in sleep. Then said Yeshua unto them plainly, Lazarus is dead, and I am glad for your sakes that I was not there, to the intent that ye may believe. Nevertheless, let's go unto him. Then said Thomas, which is called Didymus, unto his fellow disciples, let us also go, that we may die with him. So, Yeshua, was sitting around and talking about some things, and, they had sent for Yeshua. And so they were sitting around, Yeshua got, delayed. If you want to call it that, we say God didn't come on time, so he got delayed. I'm God. So by man's standards, Yeshua was delayed. And so sitting around, on this delay, he just went on and told them, Lazarus is asleep. Because they knew he was sick, and that's why they were going. They said, oh, he's resting. He's sleeping. So that's why this they didn't understand, because they knew he was sick, and now Yeshua said, oh, he's asleep. Oh, well, if he's asleep, he going to get better, That's what they were saying. He'll get better. And no. He dead. And so these type of things, invoke a lot of emotions in people. Of all that people can go through. For most people, I won't say for everybody, but for most people, losing a loved one has got to be the most difficult thing that a human can experience. It's by far, for most people, the most challenging thing that anybody can face or deal with in their life. And it evokes emotions, and it causes people to say say things, and sometimes do things that are not rational, because it's coming from a place of pain. And so even here, we see Thomas saying, well, let's go die with him. Let's and he didn't mean literally, but he had to say something, just like, man, this is a trying time, because we knew this guy. So they said, let's go. All right, let's read. Let's read a few more verses and I'll get more into it. So then when Yeshua came, he found that he had lain in the grave 4 days already. Now, Bethany or Beit Anthony, it says, was now to Jerusalem about 15 furlongs, and that's about 2 miles. And many of the Yehudim came to Martha and Mary to comfort them concerning their brother. Then Martha, as soon as she heard that Yeshua was coming, went and met him. But Mary sat still in the house. Then Martha said unto Yeshua, Lord, if thou hadst been here, my brother had not died. But I know that even now, whatsoever thou wilt ask of God, God will give it thee. Yeshua said unto her, thy brother shall rise again. And Martha said, I know that he shall rise again in the resurrection at the last day. Yeshua said unto her, I am the resurrection and the life. He that believeth in me, though he were dead, yet shall he live. And whosoever liveth and believeth in me shall never die. Do you believe this? Do you believe this? Now, again, Yeshua has not said, let me back up. So she comes out and she, again, when we lose someone that we love, it evokes, a strong emotional response. And so her response was one of frustration, one of anger, disappointment. Why? Because I had sent for you over 4 days ago. Now you just come waltzing up here like ain't nothing going on, like ain't no big deal, you and your entourage. It's frustrating. So when she heard, she didn't wait till he got in the house. She heard he was coming, and she went and met him on the road. Hey, look here. If you had been here, my brother would not have died. Now, one thing that when I believe, and I'm assuming something, I want to go out on this limb. A lot of times when we look at this, one thing that kind of slips our mind just a little bit at this point of the interaction is that this is still God. This is Yahweh in the flesh. This here is the creator of all life. All things have been created by this person. And you are approaching him talking about what he should have done. What he should have done at your beckoning, at your request, because I am Martha. And when Martha says jump, you're supposed to jump. And she's talking to God. Not just a man, not just somebody that has some abilities. She's talking to God. Why? Because it is a place of seated, disappointment, frustration, hurt. My brother's gone. And so she's expressing this to Yeshua. If you'd have been here, my brother would not have died. Another way of saying this here, you the reason my brother's dead. Now, we know that Yeshua came that we might have life and have it more abundantly. This is similar to when Yeshua was on the boat and he said, don't you care that we perish? So we say things when we're emotional. And so Yeshua, he could have took offense to this here. He could have responded back to her in a negative way. Put her in her place, so to speak. He said, just calm down. Your brother's going to rise again. And she's like, I know he's going to rise in the last day in the resurrection. Everybody going to get up then, so what's the big deal? I'm talking about right now. So Yeshua goes on and says, woman, I am the resurrection. Now what he goes on to say is that, I'm the resurrection and life, and he that, believe in me shall not die. But he ain't said nothing about Lazarus' condition right now. So he said, but do you believe this? Do you believe I am the Messiah? Do you believe I am the Son of God? Do you believe that anything is capable in my hands? Anything and everything is possible. In verse 27, she said unto him, Yea, Lord, I believe that thou art Hamashiach, the Son of God, which should come into the world. So it calmed her to some degree. Yeshua, now we're talking about love is kind. Yeshua could have went off on her. Yeshua could have been demeaning to her. He could have been hurtful to her and ignored her pain and just only responded to her words. See, a lot of times, people address us in ways that we don't feel is appropriate. And we often respond to what they say, and instead of being kind to what they are, and that's hurt. I've said many times, I believe I have, everybody's going through something. And so when people are frustrated, when people are angry, when people are bitter, when people are hurt and disappointed, frustrated, when they feel let down, when they feel rejected, when they feel like I've been dealt a bad hand, everybody is doing better than me, everybody has stuff that I dreamed about, I'm not, doing this, I'm not doing that, it's just not working out for me. And then when they lash out, sometimes we as Christians don't look past the words and see the pain. We just respond to, hey, you bring this energy, you want to deal with this energy. But Yeshua knew the woman is hurting. The woman is going through something. When people are upset, they say stuff. And if you give stuff time to settle, a lot of times people will come back to you and say, I said some stuff. I didn't mean that. I shouldn't have said that. But I was upset. I was angry. But you don't give them a chance. Because you respond to their actions and you respond to their words and you don't have any compassion, you have no kindness, and you just like, hey, if you can throw one, you got to be able to take one. I know your mama over there dead, but hey, you knew who you were talking to. So, Yeshua didn't go in this tit for tat for her. And he just, got her off the ledge, so to speak. Now, in verse 28, it says, and when she said so, she went her way. Now, in one translation, says she secretly went away and called her sister. Mary, her sister, secretly saying, privately, is what it's saying, the master is come, and he's calling for you. And as soon as she heard that, talking about Mary, she arose quickly and came unto him. Now, Yeshua was not yet come into the town, but was in the place that where Martha met him. Now, keep in mind, see there? She went, found him. It wasn't like just outside in the yard. She went and found him. And so now Mary is going to look for him as well. It said, then Yehudim, then which were with her in the house, and comforted her when they saw Mary, that she rose up hastily and went out, followed her, saying, she goeth to the grave to weep there. And when Mary was come on where Yeshua was, and she saw him, she fell down at his feet, saying, Lord, if thou hadst been here, my brother had not died. And when Yeshua therefore saw her weeping, and the Yehudim also weeping, which were come with her, he groaned in the spirit and was troubled. You know, Yeshua knew Lazarus was dead before he had even arrived. Yeshua knew that this was a hurtful thing to Martha and to Mary before he arrived. He knew the pain that they was, because he's God. But it's something, I don't know what it is, and this is something that when we make it to heaven, you just want to ask Yeshua about, what was it? Because in seeing her, now he been knowing, he was dead 4 days now, right? So he been knowing 4 days that he's dead. He been knowing 4 days that they're suffering. The pain is not abating. They're still struggling with this loss. They still got this anger, this resentment inside of them about Yeshua should have been here. He knows this. But it's something about approaching God and with an openness and a pureness and sincerity that it moves him. And so when he saw this, it said it moved him. Hold that thought. We're gonna come back to that later on, if we get there tonight. So it moved him, and in verse 34 it says, and he said, "Where have you laid him?" They said to him, "Lord, come and see." And it says in verse 35, Yeshua wept. Then it said that you would then behold how he loved him. And some of them said, could not this man which opened the eyes of the blind have caused that even this man should not have died? So there was a lot of tension there. And it says that Yeshua wept. And it said that it was because he loved Lazarus. What was it because he loved Lazarus? Because he knew, been knowing Lazarus was dead for a period of time. Death don't bother God. Let me just help y'all understand something. Because God is life in itself. So, God is spiritual. So, this here falling apart and vanishing away, that means nothing to God, because if you right with God, you going on anyway. That the life does not end, because he is the life. He is the resurrection. So it wasn't, people say, oh, he loved it. It wasn't that. It was the emotional toll of all the people. Guys, I believe God hates to see his people hurt and not have understanding, not have a way to properly express their emotions and get answers. And when God saw this here, and I think there's something even deeper here about what's going on. Because, in some ways, people feel like this is all the life I got. My whole hope is in this life on this natural earth. And when this is over with, it's over with. And I believe that moved Yeshua probably more than the emotional toll that was taken on his people, because it's like, if your hope, because he asked it like, do you believe that I am the Messiah, that I am the resurrection, I am the life, and if you believe in me, you will never die? Yeah, I believe, but you don't understand. My being here is an act of kindness. Me being here, not just today, but my being here on earth as Yeshua is an act of kindness. And so when people have a limited expectation out of God, I believe that hurts God. Lord, I just want money. And I believe that hurts him. Because I can do so much for you. I'm talking about eternity, and you talking about a raise. You disappointed because you driving a car that's got a different color bumper. But I am so much more than that. And so when we only want earthly things out of God, or we only have this limited expectation out of life, I think it disappoints God. So I think it would. I don't believe this was solely about him loving Lazarus and only about the pain that the people are feeling and all that there. I think it was something deep and spiritual going on here. And it was one thing for Martha to say it. It was another thing for Mary to say it. Then everybody else started chiming in. Yeah, if he wouldn't have took him so long to get here. I mean, he did open the eyes of the blind. I mean, I heard he did all these miracles, but I ain't seen it myself. But I heard he could do this kind of stuff, but he couldn't save this man from dying? Like blindness and death is on the same level, but, he can't. I guess he ain't. Well, he said he is. Verse 38. Yeshua, therefore, again, groaning in himself, man, coming to the grave. It was a cave and a stone lay up on it. Yeshua said, take away the stone. Martha, the sister of him that was dead, said unto him, Lord, by this time he stinketh, for he had been been dead 4 days. Yeshua said unto her, say not unto thee, that if thou wouldest believe, thou shouldest see the glory of God. So when we started reading that, the first few verses, Yeshua told the disciples, he said that I'm glad that I wasn't there for your sake, for the intent that you would believe. And so we know that he raises Lazarus, after 4 days. There was no embalming or anything. There was no preservation of the bodies and all that stuff there back then at all. So this here was truly a feat, a miracle of the greatest kind. Now you notice, if you go back to when Martha first approached Yeshua, she said, if you'd have been here, my brother would not have died. But I know it's that even now she said this, that even now, if you ask anything of the Father, he would do it. She said that. But when he said, move the stone away, who was it that said, look here, I don't know if you're ready for this here. He been dead 4 days. He didn't just die yesterday. He died 4 days ago. And he smelled, don't do this, Lord. So sometimes, emotionally, we say things. I believe you can do anything, God. But when it comes time for you to see this come about, Lord, I don't think you can do this here. And again, Yahweh has to have compassion. Sometimes on our ignorance, and sometimes on the lack of judgment that we use in the words that we speak. Don't pray about something. Don't request something of Yahweh. And then when Yahweh says, okay, here's your part, to stand in faith and to act and to move that stone away, you're like, no, I don't know if I want to do it. Well, hold. Don't say I can do anything. And when I start saying move, you don't want to move. So Yeshua demonstrated, love here. And not only, not being harsh to these people, because Mary criticized him. Martha criticized him. All the other people that came over there to console them were criticizing him. And they were blaming him, God, for the man dying. We have to be careful a lot of times. We have expectations on our lives and the lives of loved ones and other people, and we want certain things to be. And when they don't turn out right or turn out the way that aligns with our expectations, sometimes we can get a little bit beside ourselves. And sometimes we begin to not only just say things like Mary and Martha and these other individuals said, but sometimes we start over religiousizing things and putting something on God that shouldn't be there. Like, God gonna fix this here. And God said, no, some things ain't gonna be fixed. Because see, Lazarus didn't live forever. Lazarus went on and died again, and that time it was permanent. As great as Moshe was, God told him, you ain't going over. And don't ask me about it again. We ain't talking about this no more. And so there are sometimes we just want God's kindness and God's compassion and God's patience to be just stretched extremely thin for us. And God says, no, it don't work like that. It don't always work like that. So let's go to 1 Chronicles 21. First Chronicles 21. Well, hold your finger there, because we're going to jump. Let's go to Psalm 51 first, and then we'll come back. We'll go here real quick, because I just want to point out something. Let's go to Psalm 51 first, and then we'll come back to First Chronicles. Psalm 51:1. Psalm 51:1, it says, have mercy upon me, O Elohim, according to thy loving kindness, according to the multitude of thy tender mercies, blot out my transgressions. Wash me thoroughly, from mine iniquity, and cleanse me from my sin. For I acknowledge my transgression, and my sin is ever before me. Against thee only have I sinned and done this evil in thy sight, that thou mightest be justified when thou speakest, and be clear when thou judgest. So this is David. Now, what has transpired to this here? This is David after Nathan or Natan had told him, like, God is well aware of what you've been doing, over the last several months. God knows everything that's been going on, and there's a punishment to be exacted on you because of this here. And so David now is approaching God. But in verse number 1, it says, have mercy upon me. See, but David goes on and says, I acknowledge my wrong. I understand that I made a mistake. But, have mercy on me according to your loving kindness, because I know that men and God are not the same. See, people will hold grudges, and they want retribution. They want punishment. They want you to suffer for any little thing that you've done to them. If you ain't paid somebody, you owe them $5, and they ain't forgot about it. It's been 15 years. 15 years. And you walking down the street and you mess around and misstep and break your high heels. See, the Lord don't like ugly. It's been 15 years and you talking about $5. You like, God don't like ugly. But God doesn't hold these type of grudges and all this stuff here. And so David said, Lord, out of your loving kindness, and what I've done is horrible. I mean, it is bad. I had this affair with this woman. I done got her pregnant. I tried to get the man to, get caught up in it and trick him. I done involved all these other folks. And then when all that failed, I had the man killed and I felt good. Because then I went and married the woman. I felt good. Almost got me there. Yeah, almost. And then when it all come out, now I feel like a fool because the whole nation knows about this here. This is on CNN, Fox 40, WAPT, WLBT. Everybody knows about this here. Top Google search. But David said, ignoring all of that, from your seat of loving kindness and forgiveness and mercy, from your seat of love. See, we have to ask God to respond to us in love. Because if God responds to us according to the word, we won't make it. We can't make it. Because the word says that God is angry with the sinner every day, with the wicked. He said, a man that does wrong shall be punished. And that's why the Old Testament couldn't hold up, because man couldn't hold up. And God said, look, if I don't change this, y'all ain't nobody gonna make it. So David messed up, and he had to appeal to God's love. Now let's go back to 1 Chronicles 21:1. 1 Chronicles 21:1. Divrei Hayamin, Aleph 21, verse number 1. Quickly. It says, it's interesting. It says, Satan stood up against Israel and provoked David to number Israel. And David said to Joab and to the rulers of the people, go, number Israel from Beersheba to Dan, and bring the number of them to me, that I may know it. And Joab answered, Yahweh make his people 100 times so more as they be, but my lord the king, are not they all my Lord's servants? Why then dost thou require this thing? Why will he be a cause of trespass to Israel? Nevertheless, the king or David's word prevailed against Joab, wherefore Joab departed and went throughout all Israel and came to Jerusalem. And Joab gave the sum of the number of the people unto David, and they were, 1,000 and 100,000 men. That was 1.1 million of Israel, and Yehudah was 400,000, 10,000 that drew the sword. But Levi and Benjamin counted he not among them, for the king's word was abominable to Joab. So Joab went and counted everybody except 2 tribes. He said, I ain't going to give you the full number, because I know this ain't right. God has said don't count the people. Yahweh has said don't do this. But verse number 1 explains. It says that Satan, now notice what it said. Satan stood up against Israel. But he only provoked one man to do something. So sometimes you have to understand, you might be the person that's causing a whole lot of other people problems. You don't understand it, but you the problem. And so Satan has provoked you to act a fool, and then God is punishing your whole household. You can understand that in simple terms. You go to your job, gonna act a fool and talk about what you ain't gonna do and rake stuff off folks' desks and all that stuff there. Guess what? Is everybody in the house ain't got no lights. Everybody sitting up there, you want the big piece of the hot dog tonight. You want the bread in. So he went and counted, and Joab tried to talk him out of it. But, man, so what's interesting about this? They said that Satan provoked him. And see, we understand. How can you provoke the king to do something like this here when he's king, and that number means nothing? So now you know, what is that? Why do you want to know this number? That's the interesting thing. See, if I had to take a gander, somebody had been talking about, the Amorites. I heard that they got over 800,000 men. I heard that the Hittites have this. I heard that those Girgashites, yes, the Girgashites, they got this here, and the Hivites and the Jebusites, and I just heard that they got large masses of armies that can swing the sword. And he started speaking to it, to David. And it became a jealousy thing, a pride thing. Now, David had never lost a battle. So what difference does it matter how many people you got if you winning? Sometimes we got it all. We have everything that we need and then some, but we will allow Satan to speak to a spot in us that doesn't need to be spoken to, and we are provoked to do something that God does not condone or want us to do. We don't need certain things in our life, but we allow Satan to speak to that spot in our life and cause us to move in a way that disappoints God and causes other people problems. All right, verse number 7. And God was displeased with this thing, and therefore he smote Israel. And David said unto Elohim, I have sinned greatly, because I have done this thing. But now I beseech thee, go do away the iniquity of thy servant, for I have done very foolishly. And Yahweh spake unto Gad, David's seer, saying, Go and tell David, saying, Thus saith Yahweh, I will offer thee 3 things. Choose thee one of them, that I may do it unto thee. So Gad came to David, and said unto him, Thus saith Yahweh, choose thee. Either 3 years of famine, or 3 months to be destroyed before thy foes, while that the sword of thine enemies overtaketh thee, or else 3 days of the sword of Yahweh, even the pestilence in the land, and the angel of Yahweh destroying throughout the coast of Israel. Now therefore advise thyself what word I shall bring again unto him that sent me. So he gave David options. That's love. Because what did we just see in Psalm 51? He said, against thee, and thee only have I sinned. See, people forget about this here. David wasn't perfect by any stretch. If you read, David had some issues throughout. And so David messed up, and here it is again, it's causing other people problems. So now David is saying, Yahweh is saying, well, I could just punish you. I could destroy you. I could destroy the people. I could do whatever I want to do because I'm God. But punishment is required. But I will let you choose punishment. Either 3 years of famine, 3 months of being tormented by your enemies and overtaken at some point, losing large numbers of these 1.1 million that you don't win count, 1.4 million that you don't count. Wait, we're at 1.5. This 1.5 million that you don't win counted up, yeah, you're going to lose a lot of them. Or you can have 3 days of me punishing you and the people. So you make a decision. In verse 13, David said unto God, I'm in a great strait. Man, this ain't no easy choice. Man, what kind of options are these? You asking me, do I want dyed Pepsi or dyed Mountain Dew? Both of these nasty. David said to God, I am in a great strait. Let me fall now into the hand of Yahweh. For very great are his mercies, but let me not fall into the hand of man. So Yahweh sent pestilence among Israel, and there fell of Israel 70,000 men. And God sent an angel unto Jerusalem to destroy it. And as he was destroying, Yahweh beheld, and he repented him of the evil, and said to the angel that destroyed it, it's enough. Stay now thy hand. And the angel of the Lord stood by the threshing floor of Ornan, the Yevusi. And David lifted up his eyes and saw the angel of the Lord standing between earth and heaven, having a drawn sword in his hand is stretched out over Jerusalem. Then David and the elders of Israel who were clothed in sackcloth fell upon their faces. And David said to God, is it not I that commanded the people to be numbered? Even I is that have sinned and done evil indeed. But as for these sheep, what have they done? Let thine hand, I pray thee, O Yahweh, my Elohim, be upon me and my father's house, but not upon thy people, that they should be plagued. So again, we see a kindness and a compassion. Because see, Yahweh had said they were going to be destroyed, and when the destroyer started, going through, and Yahweh looked at it and said, "That's enough. That's enough." Even though punishment is necessary to set a strong message and a signal that some things just can't be done and ignored, I gotta punish, but at the same time, God looks at us and says, "That's enough," because He loves us. He looks and He says, "Okay, I'm going to do something that you don't deserve. I'm going to have mercy upon you." And the angels are standing like, "Lord, I'm in mid-swing here, Lord. That's enough." You're like, "But man, I was just getting started." That's enough. But what turned the situation? David approached Yahweh in sincerity. When you approach God properly, something that, for years now, that's always kind of fascinated me. And I think about the lady with the issue of blood. We often say, God was moving. God was moving in the church today. God was doing this here. We could feel the God moving. And God, had me, excited and all that stuff there. And we often say that based on our actions, right? On what we did, we say that God was doing it. But when the lady with the issue of blood touched Yeshua, Yeshua said, "Who touched me?" Because He felt that. They said, "Lord, people are thronging you about." He said, "You're in a crowd of folks. Everybody's just trying to touch you." You said something out of touch. He said, "Somebody touched me." And it wasn't her physical touch, but she had tapped into something spiritual. David here was tapping into something spiritual before Yahweh. Because they had put the sackcloth on and the ashes and all. David had truly humbled himself, and he regretted, of what he had done. And he was looking, and I'm sure he was getting reports. This many people died. This many people died. This here is going wrong. This here. And it began to hurt him in his heart. And so he, in sincerity, he approached God. And out of God's love for us, God responded and said, "That's enough." So, that's God, that ain't me. We have to mature as believers, as children of that same God, as followers of that same Messiah, and have that same type of compassion. Don't respond to people's words. Don't respond even to their actions. But we have to have kindness. We have to have compassion. We have to begin to look beyond what we see. And as Yeshua, we often say God does not look at the outward appearance. God looks at the inward, look at the heart. Well, we got to start looking there as well. Because when I see somebody acting a fool, yes, I see people. I'm human. I'm just like everybody else. I see people walking around, acting a fool, talking crazy, and being respectful to people, and hurting and all that stuff there. And it's frustrated. But I gotta look beyond that and praise the Lord. What is the cause of this here? For some of these people, where's the mama at? Where's the daddy at? They're a product of their environment. That's all they know. Kill or be killed. But I have to look past that and just stop calling them ignorant and stupid and all that there, because they are created like this here because of their environment. Because if I just look at somebody and I say, they just ignorant, I'm not going to pray for them. I got to look past that. Because again, I got to have a godly love. I have to respond to people's needs. I have to respond not to their words, their actions. I have to respond to the pain that they're going through. And when people say or do things that, is offensive, sometimes, maybe that ain't even the time to respond. I'm sorry you feel like that. I'm sorry that I did or said something to cause you to feel like that. Step away. Give it a couple days. And then maybe you can go back later on and say, hey, let's talk about what happened. Because I don't think I felt that it was justified, but maybe I'm not understanding everything that was going on. And that takes love. Because as a child of God, your whole goal and mission in life is to fear God and to keep His commandments. And part of that is to take somebody to heaven with you. But if you building walls and you're tearing down people, then you ain't doing your God-given responsibility as a child of God. So, knowing how to love, or knowing what love is, and learning how to display love is on the next page. And we got to turn that page and say, Lord, I know how you love me. Is this the same type of love I'm supposed to have down here? And the answer is yes. Let's bow our heads. Heavenly Father, we come to you right now in the blessed and mighty name of Yeshua HaMashiach. We thank you and praise you, Lord, for this opportunity to study your word. Heavenly Father, we pray, Lord, that the love that you've demonstrated for us, Heavenly Father, is the same love that we can also show our fellow man and fellow woman. Heavenly Father, that we can take this love, Lord, beyond the walls of the church and beyond the connections and the interactions of our family, Lord, and have it for all that we come in contact with. Heavenly Father, teach us to love, Lord. Teach us how to love, Lord. Teach us how to demonstrate and operate in love. Heavenly Father, so that we can have a true reflection of the person that saved us and loved us and suffered for us, Lord, so that we can then in turn share the same love with others. Lord, we give you all the praise, glory, and honor for this. In the mighty name of Yeshua we pray. Amen.